All right, we are rolling episode 7 of Chasing 69, a New York Jets podcast. We are officially 1 day away from the 2022 NFL Draft. The most exciting week of the NFL offseason to me. There's a lot of buildup. Teddy, if you're watching on YouTube, just had a passionate scream.
I'm amped, dude.
Fired up. It's like I said, of the offseason, it's really exciting when free agency starts. But once Monday hits and you've got draft week coming up, that's when the stories pile up, the rumors get started. So a lot to dissect in today's episode. We're going to do some housekeeping as always, take a look at some, more visits that the Jets have had. There's not as many this week. I think it shows that they're pretty much set on where they're going with the draft just a few days away. And then, man, oh man, it has been a crazy 48 hours in terms of rumors, trade possibilities, pick changes for the Jets. So we're going to get into all of that. First off, Teddy, how excited are you?
Dude, you're exactly right. It's the Monday before. And what's been so great about this whole offseason and what's going to be so great about Thursday is it's the first round and the Jets got 2 picks in the top 10. Like literally what could be more exciting? You know, it's like game day, kind of, basically.
Yeah. And building off of what last year's draft was, there is a ton of opportunity. This is like a make or break, not make or break draft for the Jets, because I think last year definitely bought themselves a little bit of time if this year happened to, for whatever reason, not go well. But this is where the Jets can really take themselves into like, okay, this is a team that's on the rise, going to be pushing, winning games actually in September and October, in the hunt for the playoffs. So totally agree. From a Jets perspective, it's such a great time.
The thing about last offseason was it was so like the next 2 years, we got to take that step. And last year it was cool. We did it, but we still had this year where it's like, okay, we have all this room. We have all these picks, and we're really in like the meat and potatoes of like, is this team going to do the right things and take the right step forward? Or are they going to continue to be the Jets, And it's right. Just we're in it, and all you can hope for is just that it goes well.
Yep, exactly. And for those watching on YouTube, we've got a fun change to our format. Teddy has a very electric, almost like Gotham City Jets logo in his background to complement. Is that a Wilson jersey you got on?
Yes, I had to rep for, it's draft week. I'm really bought into Wilson being like a top 1 quarterback next year. So yeah, I'm amped. I'm amped.
Awesome. And I've got I'm in Vegas this week. I have a really disgusting backdrop because I'm not recording at my house. I'm at my store. So I'm in Las Vegas for the draft, pretending to be there. But Teddy, let's jump right into things. We've got a lot we want to talk about today.
I just put that together. Vegas.
Oh, that the draft is in Vegas. Were you like, why the
fuck
smart
is he
choosing Vegas?
No, I just thought it was a cool looking picture. I was like, oh, you look like you're in a cool place.
Yeah, no, I'm here for the draft. I believe that would be really cool. I know they're doing like a whole pond thing for the draft. I wonder if that's where it is. Maybe I picked the exact spot in Vegas. That'd be cool. Anyways, getting into some quick housekeeping. The first thing, I believe it started the day after we dropped our podcast, which always has happened for us. We drop it on Wednesday, and then sure enough, some news comes out. Deebo Samuel wants out. It's going to be on the move. Ever since, it seemed like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of last week, not too likely. The 49ers were pretty adamant that they weren't going to make the move. Deebo, it's not just about money for him. He wants to move back to the East Coast. He wants to play, more like a receiver, not that hybrid running back role. I was talking with you about it. Running back miles are city miles. Wide receiver miles are highway miles. You just have a longer career when you're not taking those beatings as a running back. So now he's available. Obviously, the Jets, with all of their ties to San Francisco, make a ton of sense, especially when you consider they've been in on every receiver. And Joe Douglas has said, we will be in on every receiver. Teddy, now it seems, as early as 5 hours ago, I saw an Athletic tweet that it seems more likely Deebo is going to get moved. And if the 49ers are going to do that, they're going to do it before the draft so they can get some draft picks and get some more selections in here Thursday and Friday. So thoughts on the Deebo news, thoughts on his fit with the Jets, and just kind of break that all down.
Yeah, I mean, Deebo, I'm like bought in, really. Like I really do. I think it's just so likely that it happens. And I think that if he's not going to get traded to the Jets, I think he's going to end up staying on the 49ers. But when you just like, you'd be you'd be ignorant to think Joe Douglas isn't in on this. You know what I mean? Like, he's obviously shown us that with Tyreek Hill and Amari Cooper and all these other guys that he's had interest in, that he's looking to make a move like this. It was reported that they made a deal, or they offered a deal that got rejected by the Niners like a week and a half ago. So to me, it all comes down to, are the 49ers going to bite? And I think what's an important differentiation between the Tyreek Hill deal and that whole situation is that Deebo, everyone keeps saying like, oh, Deebo has to want to come to the Jets. I mean, he doesn't really, right? Like,
No.
he doesn't have a no trade clause. He doesn't have that type of leverage that these other guys have had. So when you look at, okay, here we are where we're the Jets, and they're the team with all the draft capital, and they're the team with all the cap space. And that's why no matter who the player is that becomes available, the Jets name is always thrown in the hat. And to me, it's just like clear as day, there he is, you know, and like they're in on it. And I will just, like, to me, if we traded the 10th pick for Deebo Samuel, I just see no reason why that would be like you're taking a guy who's one of the best receivers in the league and taking him as opposed to drafting a guy who hopefully is going to be one of the best receivers in the league. You know, like, all these draft picks are just small percent chances. Like, obviously they're stars, but they're just, it's the percentage of guys that are the best of the best is not high. You know what I mean? So it's just, if that opportunity comes, I'm bought in.
Yeah, I agree. If it comes to taking the 10th pick, I believe it's still the move to make. I was wondering, by the way, if you can hear any background noise. Our store is like a block away from a very big hospital.
Was there some
in Nashville.
sirens?
Yeah, so
I
if
did
we
hear
catch
some
that
sirens,
throughout the episode,
cool.
It's probably going to happen. But going back to Deebo Samuel, I do agree you still make the move. If it's the 10th overall pick, the mission is to get a star wide receiver for this offense to make life easy for Zach Wilson into year 2. I love Deebo. Don't get me wrong. I feel like what I'm about to say seems a little pessimistic, and I was about to put out an article talking about maybe some pros and cons over making this deal. I've refrained from that, seeing how much hate the opposite side gets on Jets Twitter right now. So I'm still not sure if we're going to put that piece out or not. But you know, he's had one healthy year. I believe he's one of the best receivers in football. I think he's a one of one with his capabilities, but I don't know. I just think sometimes, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this without sounding mean.
Just go for it.
It's just one of those, he's already banged up. He's already got some mileage on him. He just came through a fully healthy season. But the previous 2 or 3 seasons, injuries in college, injuries in the pros, you worry about that, you know, what the toll this past season might have already taken on him. Now he's super young. He's only entering that second contract. I would have been more concerned trading for Tyreek Hill, who's had all of these hamstring injuries. He's in his early 30s. So I'm more comfortable trading for Deebo than I am here with Tyreek. But I think we also have to understand that when he goes to this new location, it's not going to be the Deebo Samuel that lit the world on fire the second half of last regular season and into the playoffs. He does not want part of that running game, and that's fine, because I think the Jets are in a good position to do well with Michael Carter, and if they throw in a nice backup there, I don't think they need Deebo to be that. I just think people will be a little bit underwhelmed of what they get, but at the same time, you would hope if Zach Wilson takes that leap, it looks better than what you got out of Jimmy Garoppolo. So maybe even just better quarterback play takes Deebo Samuel to another level as a pass catcher.
Yeah, in terms of Deebo and like his injury history, I definitely get that, because it's so easy to just have like kind of flash when you're healthy, but then really never be able to keep that consistent and stay on the field. But at the same time, I do think like when a guy has a year or 2 or 3 where they're getting injured, yes, very times maybe that guy's injury prone, but then a lot of times they just end up going on and being like, okay, now that this guy's healthy, he is actually a star.
Yeah.
And you put together the San Francisco connections with Mike LaFleur. And I also just think that the idea that he doesn't want to play the hybrid role or whatever, when I first heard that, I was like, that makes no sense, because that's what makes Deebo so great. But what I think is important to remember is that Deebo's kind of had this role, and that's been like the key word in the NFL. Like, oh, he plays like Deebo Samuel, and but it wasn't until the end of this year where they actually started lining him up as running back,
right?
At that H-back position to run downhill. So he can still be playing receiver and lining up in the slot and outside and still give you that extra, like, hand him the ball, get him in space, put him in a tight slot and motion him and just hand him the ball. Like those things can still happen and exist without him lining up as, in a lot of cases for San Francisco last year, their number one halfback, So I do think it's like, yeah, you can worry about, oh, well, if he doesn't want to play the same role, but he's already shown that, like, he's existed without lining up in the backfield actually at running back, so. But I mean, at the end of the day, I do want to make clear that if the Jets don't get Deebo, I'm still, like, we're in such a great position with the top 4 picks that we have in the top 40.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the luxury that we have is, you want to go get Deebo, do it. You want to not and hold your ground and take your picks, do it.
Yeah. And even to further that, and I think this is where I'm taking the angle of my article when it comes out later this week. If, say, they miss out on Deebo, but they really want someone that's just that role, trade back. I know we've talked about trading back, but trade back from number 10, get back into the late teens, early 20s, take Treylon Burks out of Arkansas and just run with it, because it's a lot easier to tell somebody in their rookie season that they're going to be that hybrid role where they're lining up at running back and end around. And, Treylon Burks a little bit more built than Deebo as well, too. So maybe he can just take contact a little bit better than him, but could be a guy that fits that role very well. Now, obviously, he's not Deebo Samuel, and you have no idea if he's going to hit. So that's the, I guess, pros and cons you have to weigh with that whole situation.
I know. And, like, as I said on either last episode or the episode before, like, I love Treylon Burks.
He's awesome.
And the only problem I have with that scenario is you trade back and you don't get him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And somehow you lose him. And that's what I'm so scared of. But if the Jets come out of this draft with Treylon Burks, that will be awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we both agree you still do the trade for Deebo. I think I'm just a little more cautious because I think, his rookie season was really solid. You take a look at the numbers. I had him right here, 57 catches, 800 yards, 14 yards of reception, still took the ball 14 times for 159 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. It just doesn't compare to what we got out of this past season, where it was 18.2 yards of reception, 1,400 yards, 77 catches. And then he also added in 365 yards on the ground. I saw something that said if you gave Deebo Samuel the volume of carries that Jonathan Taylor had this past year, Deebo would have had 2,200 rushing yards, and I believe it was somewhere in the high 20s of touchdowns. Like, easily just would have been
projections like that.
It's fun. It's just fun to take a look at what he would have been as.
It's mad.
So I think, okay, we're both on the same page with the Deebo trade. It is going to happen. Wouldn't it be hilarious if it happens tomorrow when we release the pod, like every single week we release a show? Because I mean, that's when it's going to happen, tomorrow or before Thursday night. That's
I really do. Like, I think it's going to happen. Like, it very well may not, but I think it's going to happen. I really do.
At the end of the day, do you think they have to give up 10, or is it the Tyreek package?
I don't know. I think it comes down to, we're just going to spend this whole podcast talking about Deebo.
I know. Well, this is going to be a long one.
I think it comes down to whatever the 49ers value higher, because this trade value chart that all these coaches work off of, which is really dumb, but it like, that's what they work off of. And when you look at the trades that have gone down, they're like very accurate.
I always follow it.
And the 2 picks in the second round, if that's what they want, and 69, it's like, okay, well, now we get 2 top 10 guys. I'd rather just give up the 10 and keep those 3 picks, and take guys that can be game changers. I think those 2 picks at the beginning of the second round are going to be awesome, but part of what I think makes it so awesome is that I want them to have a receiver already. Right. And like, now we're just going on, and we can get into all this stuff, but this is like what we said. I mean, it's a crazy time, and there's so many possibilities. It's so fun.
Well, that's what we said before recording this podcast, is it's going to be all over the place, just because of, there were so many possibilities heading up to this week, and then there's a dozen more after the news of the last 48 hours. So let's move on from Deebo for now. I think we'll wrap things up kind of at the end with some final NFL draft predictions. Other housekeeping. We're gonna give a shout out to Bilal Powell. I'm gonna let Teddy give his oral history here. Signed a 1-day contract to retire as a New York Jet. Teddy, I know you love him as a player. He's a great dude. I think I had him in fantasy maybe one season at a certain point, and obviously I'm familiar with him. But just your thoughts of him, being able to finish things up as a Jet, and take it away.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Blake and I grew up in a wonderful town called Cortland, New York. And as Jets fans, you're probably very familiar with Cortland, New York, because from like 2009 to like, I don't know, 2014, 13, 15, one of those years, the Jets did training camp there. And me being a young buck would go all the time. They had 2-a-days before the collective bargaining agreement. I was there twice a day riding my bike.
Insane.
And I just say that because Bilal Powell was drafted in 2011, like in the peak of when the Jets were coming to Cortland. He might have been drafted the year that of the lockout. I think it was the year after, but I can't remember. Oh no, I think it was the year lockout. But then those following years he was there. And I mean, this is just one of those guys. I mean, everyone knows it. Like, he is just a Jet through and through. He was always a Jet, never left. He's 8th all time on the Jets rushing list, 3,675 yards. Like, shout out, what a GOAT. The thing I remember about Bilal Powell, and that whenever I hear his name, I think of, is I always just remember like a stretch where every season the Jets have like all these other running backs, and Bilal Powell is just buried on the depth chart at like 3 or 4. And then by the end of the year, like he's out there starting. And I was like wondering, I was like, why do I have that? Like, I wonder if the stats back this up, and I went and looked, and sure enough, like after his first 2 years, 2013 and 14, the Jets had Chris Johnson and Chris Ivory, who everyone knows, like when we got those guys, that was like a fever dream, but they were pretty productive backs. And they kind of buried Bilal. And then in 2016, which was one of Bilal's like better years, through the first 12 games, so 12 out of a 16 game season, he had 48 carries for 308 yards, like barely touched the ball. And then through the last 4 games, he had 82 carries and 411 yards. His first game of that stretch, he had 29 carries. Like, and so that's probably why I have that memory, because of that specific year. But I mean, the thing with Bilal is he really was like a productive back for the Jets for 9 years, with a few like lower years in there, but just a lot of like just solid production, like backup level production, and there's not often you get a guy like that. And especially in our Jets history, like of these past 10 years, there hasn't been a lot of guys you can say like, oh, I really love that guy. And Bilal Powell, he's a great one, man. And I just, to see him, I thought he already retired. Like, I just hadn't thought about Bilal Powell in a while, but see him sign that contract with the Jets, like that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool way. I love when the players get to go back to that team that really just signed that 1 day, get to retire as a member of your former team where you spent, the majority of your career. I remember the Jeff Saturday ended up playing his final season with the Green Bay Packers, and then did the whole, sign a 1 day with the Colts, retire to Colton. He was that guy along with Peyton for that run that just, they were always there, always available. Guys like that just are such a huge impact to even going back to like, look, we're not old. We were kids, back when, those years. And so it's cool to have that kind of nostalgic feel to it. Like, I remember Bilal Powell. Yeah, that's great. So cool. Okay, good. Anything else you want to put on Bilal? I don't have a lot to say.
No, I just wanted, like, because the thing with like what I just said about, like, I think I've been thinking, I just like think of Bilal Powell at like random times all the time. And it's always like, wow, he just always stepped up like when we needed him. Like, and he was just always great. And even every year they'd be like, oh, he's not going to start. And then by the end of the year, it's like, okay, he's our starter. He's getting most of it, and it's just like, just continuously was productive.
That's nice. Well, congratulations to Bilal Powell retiring as a New York Jet. Last thing that we want to touch on of housekeeping. Just 5 new names visiting with the Jets before, those top official 30 visits. A bunch of defensive backs in this latest batch. We've got a cornerback out of Fresno State, Deron Bland, Will Allen out of Columbia, Tariq Woolen, UTSA. Those 3 corners, Teddy, they're going to be undrafted free agents. And to me, the only thing that tells me is the Colts. Yikes. The Jets are probably not going to list cornerback at the top of their priority list for this draft. At least that's what I see out of it. I think that they're just trying to get a good feel of who's going to be available to pick up right after the draft. A couple of these guys are going to be priority free agents as well, too, Allen and Bland specifically. So I think getting in there is kind of showing those guys like, hey, we're going to give you a really nice opportunity here if you don't get drafted. So hopefully you choose us, between the other teams that may offer you.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And like when you look at the Jets and how Joe Douglas has handled undrafted free agents, since he's been here, I think he takes that very seriously of like, who are these guys that are going to fall out and who are these guys that we're going to want to bring in here. I'm still holding out hope on Kenny Yeboah, tight end. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yep. And then safety Percy Butler out of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. University of Lafayette at Louisiana. Yeah. Bringing him in, safety, to me, probably going to be 5th or 6th rounder, day 3 picks, probably just another name to throw in there at the back end. And then finally, they met with USC's Drake London, who, has been our boy for about a month now. People always think that, I remember people were like, why haven't the Jets met with Kayvon Thibodeaux yet? It's like, because they have a lot of visits to do, and those teams and those players have a lot of scheduled visits. It just takes time to find everybody. So they get Drake London in there for a top 30 visit. I believe that's all the housekeeping, Teddy, correct? And we can kind of move on to some of the more recent news of the last 48 hours.
Yes, sir. Keep it rolling.
Awesome. Perfect. Move right on. Our good old friend, Mekhi Becton. Tackle 2020 NFL draft pick, 2020, right? Not 2019.
Yeah, 2020
NFL draft pick.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
One of the 4 left tackles taken in that first round there. Reports coming out.
Can't be right.
Yeah, Andrew Thomas, Jedrick Wills, and
No. I'm saying, was it 2 years ago? 2020?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, technically 3 years now because 2022 draft is about to happen.
But this will be his 3rd year coming up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So Becton, rumors are his days may be limited in New York. People believing that he has wore a Jets jersey for the final time. There were reports of some frustrations over Becton not being there for the start of camp the other week. He also has a girlfriend who's a little bit late on in pregnancy. So, not sure if that had anything to do with it or whatnot, but could potentially be done in New York. And that changes a whole lot at the top of the draft. You think about, okay, if 1 through 3 are edge rushers, do you take an Evan Neal? Do you take an Ikem Ekwonu? What does that do for the 10th overall pick if you haven't addressed edge by then? So Teddy, Becton really showed so much promise in that first year. We know the concerns about him, staying focused and healthy and caring about his body. What do you make of all this news now that it could be over before it even really got started?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Mekhi and where we're at, after these 2 years with him is really just like, I was thinking about this the other day, actually. And just as I was like on a walk at like 8 o'clock in the morning with my dog, I was just thinking, and I was like, Mekhi Becton truly is just like a question mark in terms of like his injury and where he stands with that, and Jets fans want to debate it till they're blue in the face. It's either, oh, Mekhi's a bum, he's been injured, blah, 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 he's out of shape, or it's, it's unfortunate that he's been injured, but when he was on the field, he was a star, and we just got to hope he gets back. And it's like, that's fine to argue, but at the end of the day, no one knows except for the Jets, who are there every day, and Mekhi Becton. Like, we are not there every day. The fans aren't there. You know what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. And I personally, and I'm sure like most people you want to side with the player. You know, you want to hope like, oh, he's just got to get right. Like he's probably doing what he's got to do. In my opinion, I don't make much of him not being at meetings or whatever, or voluntary practices, except for the fact that for consistently since he's gotten injured, since the end of that first season, there has been reports coming out of the Jets camp like complaining about Mekhi Becton, and it's been consistent, and it's not something that's really led up. And to me, it's just like we hear these things for a reason, you know, like where there is smoke, there is fire. To quote Connor Hughes, who just said that about Jermaine Johnson the other day. But it's just like, I don't know. I mean, it's like you really don't know. And at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to is this all going to blow over and he's going to be healthy, or are the Jets actually going to move on? And in my opinion, it's like, regardless of what I want as a fan, why would there be consistent messaging that's putting him down and saying we need to, like, this, something's got to change without there being some type of reason behind it.
Yeah, and I should have done a better job introducing this. This came around when Dane Brugler was on the NFL Road Show with Lindsey Rhodes and was talking about Ikem Ekwonu possibly being a New York Jet with a top 6 pick. His exact quote was, "I don't think we talk enough about Mekhi Becton. There are plenty of people around the league who believe he'll never put on a Jets jersey again. They think that ship has sailed." And so, yeah, you know, it's unfortunate because after the rookie season, there was so much upside. You're like, oh my God, if he was this dominant in year one, we just need to, polish up some of his tools, get him healthy, get him, in better shape. The sky's the limit. So he did show a lot of promise in that first season, obviously gets hurt to an injury that wasn't his fault. We've talked about that, someone rolled up on him and all of a sudden his second season is over. It does change so much though, I guess, of what we've thought about the Jets draft process, because this entire time we've been thinking edge rusher at 4, wide receiver at 10, and then fill in some of the other starting positions in rounds 2 and 3. If Ikem Ekwonu is available at number 4, the Jets have to take him. He has to be the number 1 pick if there is concern or the chance that they move off of Becton, whether that's, in day 2 of the draft, for some people that, maybe they look to get another second round pick or wherever it is. These are moves that are probably going to be happening soon, kind of like with the Deebo trade. So changes everything. And I believe that's why we're starting to get the rumblings of Jermaine Johnson with the Jets. And we'll talk about him after, once we, wrap up with Becton. But Icky, to me, is the number 1 player in this draft. I do believe it's not like a runaway show where it's him on a drop off between everybody else, but he's my top overall player. He's an instant starter at guard, tackle, perfect fit for the zone scheme, a player that is a great fit for the Jets organization in terms of personality. Now that there's concerns over his long-term, of Becton's long-term fit with the Jets, this changes kind of everything we've thought about their whole process leading up to the draft.
Yeah, it does. And I will put it out there. Like, I personally still would put my money on the fact that Mekhi Becton is a Jet come around. I really would. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe I just am not as up to date on the credibility of this report, but that's what I still think is the most likely scenario. But at the end of the day, like, if the Jets want to move from Mekhi Becton, in no world can you not be taking Ekwonu if he's there, you know? And what's so interesting is, like, this whole draft process, say we're thinking that we are going to have Mekhi, it's all about like, oh, are they going to take 3 edges in the first 3? And my kind of saving grace with that is I think one of those 3 teams would draft Ekwonu because of how good of a prospect he is, but now it's like, okay, well, on the flip side, if the Jets need a left tackle, I don't think he's going to be there at 4, or if he is, then you got to take him. So, I mean, you are right. Like, it all comes down to, like, if they want to move on from Mekhi Becton, he's got to be the pick.
And that's what I think makes it so difficult. Not to sound like a broken record, because we've stated this multiple times, but there is no certain pick in the top 3 right now. We have no idea where these guys are going. Trayvon Walker is now the betting favorite to go to Jacksonville.
This is really wild. Like,
with Jacksonville, the
would
head
Trayvon
coach
Walker
wants, well,
three different people in the organization want three different prospects. The head coach, Doug Peterson, wants Ike Ekwonu. The general manager wants Trayvon Walker, and the owner wants Aiden Hutchinson. So it's like, where is this going to land? And that changes everything for the picks that follow it. I do believe there is a solid chance that Ike is there at number 4, which is crazy because I believe that the Houston Texans, with their new organization and how they've really become, they're trying to become New England South at this point. I do think that they prioritize a guy of the build of Evan Neal. And I think that he could be the offensive lineman they go with at number 3, which I personally, like I said, I think Ike is better. I just think that stature wise, they probably go with a guy that's a 6'7" massive man. That's just undoubtedly a great offensive lineman, and both are great prospects. But I do think there's a chance Ike's there at 4. So that could change a lot. So you still think that Becton could be, starting at tackle for the Jets next season?
My problem with thinking he's not is that a lot of times and again, like this is all just like perception, but for me, when I think of like these guys who end up kind of not working out and being injured all the time, like I feel like a lot of times those guys like have times on the field where they're not like playing that well. And in my, like in Mekhi Becton's case, like when he was on the field, however short it was, like he was great, like he was a star. And in my opinion, he was the best of those 4 left tackles, except for maybe the Bucks kid, Wirfs.
Yeah.
But I don't know, dude. I don't know. I mean, I wish that I wish I knew it was in Joe Douglas's ear and knew what he was going to say. To me, he should be there and he should be on the team. And like, the fact that he's continuously being injured, it's like at some point, and again, like it's not what I want and it's not what I think. It's Joe Douglas and the Jets just like, listen, we need a solid left tackle and or right tackle if we're going to put like we need a good offensive line, and we're not gonna put up with like you playing your wishy-washy games and ending up being out and not being in training camp. And you know what I mean? Like they're like, we need to win now. We need to step up and be good. And it's just like, I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And especially because I'm almost more excited to see what the return for a trade with Becton would look like. Like, are they able to get, like a 2nd round pick, a 3rd round pick? Like what is the value you can get for someone that's shown a ton of promise, but clearly if the Jets are looking to move off of him, there's a lot that they don't think is good for an NFL organization. So that part is really interesting too. Do they try and move Becton first to get more middle round picks to then even, load up the trade deal for Deebo Samuel? Or do they keep those picks to try and address more holes if they, trade away 10 for Deebo? It's madness. And it also, here's the other part, could just totally be a giant smokescreen, which leads me to this next topic, Jermaine Johnson. The buzz came out Monday when our guy Connor Hughes, who writes for The Athletic, put out some buzz that Jermaine Johnson is in serious consideration for the Jets with the number 4 overall pick. This would be something that I think, not to say that Jermaine Johnson is a bad prospect by any means. He's definitely one of the top 10 players of this class, a top, 4 to 5 edge rusher of this class. But after an offseason of everybody really coming to terms with Kayvon Thibodeaux and loving the idea of it, like everybody now seems to be on page of like, Kayvon needs to be the guy in New York. Now with Jermaine Johnson kind of going out there, we're not sure if this is serious buzz, if, like I said, it could be in consideration with the 10th pick, if by then Kayvon's gone and they went with an offensive lineman at 4. Before we get into all that, I'm curious your thoughts on, because I texted you immediately when I saw Connor Hughes tweet this out, and you were like, it's also the week of the draft. This could all just be him doing the work for the Jets front office.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're going to talk about this before we dive into it, but like, I really just don't buy it. And it kind of goes back to this Mekhi stuff too, but it's just like Connor Hughes is one of those guys. Like, I mean, do you know better than me? Like, is he like, somehow is he like the guy for the Jets? Like, is he like Joe Douglas's boy or something like that?
It's not necessarily that, but I think every front office finds a guy that is well respected and writes for a reputable site and is like, hey, we want you to be available to kind of put some stuff out for us. In return, we'll give you scoops.
And it's sure as hell not Samini. And that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. I think Hughes is that guy for the Jets, you know?
And also, but what you can't blame any reporter who takes that. It happens with every team. And if they're going to get the scoops that are important, it's just part of the game. And the only thing that I think is interesting is I was talking with some other friends about this. There was the same situation happening with Washington 2 years ago, where the writer for The Athletic was just dumping everything out there, all positive spin pieces for I believe they were the football team at the time. It got so intense that The Athletic actually let him go because of it. So it's this interesting line of being able to mix in a little bit of the stuff that the front office wants, but also being able to disguise it well. So it seems like Hughes could potentially be that guy for the Jets.
Right. And so here's what I think. I mean, we're recording this on Tuesday night of draft week. First round is in 2 days. In 48 hours, we're gonna know who the Jets have taken it for, most likely. And the Monday of, we get a report that the Jets might want to reach for a guy that a majority of people don't have as a top 5 prospect. As much as people do, majority of people don't. And that comes out from Connor Hughes, who has consistently kind of been, he's the guy who got all the free agent signings. And like what you have to remember about this Joe Douglas regime is that things don't leak. Like, they don't. So why would this report about, oh, this is the guy the Jets want, come out the Monday before? You know, like, you just add it up. And then take today. What was the big theme on Jets Twitter today? It was, we got to start being very realistic about Ikem Ekwonu being the pick. And it's like, okay, well, what's the one name I haven't heard yet this week?
Yep.
Kayvon Thibodeaux,
Yep.
you know, and that's kind of where I've been with Kayvon this whole draft, is like, it just seems like he's the most likely guy, and everything's going to kind of point every other way. But maybe it's just like the pessimism in me, and I'll just be dead wrong come draft night. But like, how do you go the past 3 weeks being like, we all know the week before the draft is the smokescreen, like, happy smokescreen week. Like, how do we do that? And then take the first 2 stories that are fed to us that both directly correlate with the Jets picking someone who's not Kayvon Thibodeaux? You know, like, to me, that's just a little too convenient.
It is. And I don't know. We talked about this. We were texting earlier this week, and it revolves around the Kayvon Thibodeaux situation. And if the Jets were to somehow take Jermaine Johnson at number 4, I would 1000% rather Kayvon Thibodeaux go at number 3 to Houston than for us to pass up on him fall into the to the Giants, even, let alone him be in the same building for a different organization, and then turn into the star that we think he's going to be. Like that. If Houston takes him and the Jets never had a chance at it, it's fine. If the Jets pass up on him for Jermaine Johnson, who, to me, yes, right out the gates is probably going to be a little bit more pro ready, is better against the run, probably a little bit better of a frame, to me, doesn't have nearly the upside that Thibodeaux does. So it would be really unfortunate. Jets fan base has gotten so revved up for Kayvon Thibodeaux. If they pass on him for someone else, it's going to be brutal.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think maybe it comes down to like philosophy. But in my opinion, like in Joe Douglas's press conference last week or whenever it was, he said, we expect these top 4 picks to come in and be starters. You know, like, we expect them to come in and be starting on our team. And when I think about Jermaine Johnson and when what I think about him as a prospect is, yeah, you're right. Like, he is that pro ready guy, you know, like he's got pretty good technique. Like he knows what he's doing. He's strong. He's a good run stopper, like all these very, like, in my opinion, kind of like safe aspects. But what he just doesn't have, to me, is that ability to, like, or at least what I don't see. And in no way am I like the big scout, but what I don't see is the ability to like become like, oh, this guy is one of the most dominant edges in the league. Like when I look at Jermaine Johnson, I see a guy that the Jets take and he becomes maybe a solid starter, maybe an okay, like, like I don't see whereas Kayvon Thibodeaux, sure, there's that chance he could not be it and kind of bust, but there's also that chance that he goes out there and he changes games, and like, again, I probably have said this on like 3 or 4 podcasts, but as when you spend a lot of time like looking at the NFL, there's so many like, oh, we got to do this, we got to build the puzzle, we got to build the right way, we got to draft this player because he's blah blah blah. Like at the end of the day, you need players who are going to go out there and who are going to make plays that help you win the game. Like you don't win the game because you have a better team and because you did things the right way. You win the game because you have guys out there who are going to go out there and win the game for you, and like it's very easy to forget that when you think about football, but that's what football is. Why were the Bengals so great is because Jamar Chase is the kind of guy who touches the ball and anything can happen. Like, and when I look at Kayvon Thibodeaux, he provides just the ability, like the chance to be elite and to change games and to make things like to really give the Jets a chance, as opposed to a guy who, okay, he's going to be a pretty solid edge player starter. And I mean, that's just how I view these guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, Kayvon's my top edge in this class. Jermaine Johnson is the safer pick, but I don't think you need to play it safe here. I think you need to go for the guy. And especially given the track record of this staff as well, too, and how well they've built up guys that kind of fit the bill of Kayvon Thibodeaux. It's like, why not just get this guy that has sky high potential and trust in yourself that you are going to get that out of him?
What does Jermaine Johnson's like athletic profile?
Let me see. I'll pull up like the measurements specifically.
Just in terms of like, yeah, I guess the measurements, but just in terms of like, is he an over hyper athletic type of prospect? Is he more of just like a solid guy? Because like that's the thing with the Jets is they're very much it's clear as day in their draft picks. You can look at the history with Joe Douglas. They want the athletic guys. And again, it's like they have shown in their free agent signups and I think in their draft picks that they're going to take shots on the more athletic guy who maybe has more potential than production.
Yeah, and that's where I think that's a great point because I just pulled up my my draft profile, which shout out drops tomorrow when this podcast drops. All my edge rushers go to the NFL draft newsletter. Offensive lineman came out today. Edge rushers when this podcast drops. Defensive backs on Thursday. Number one thing about his downside is he's got a really high center of gravity, a little clunky, gets knocked over by bigger tackles, long frame, like could build into someone but he plays too high. Whereas Kayvon Thibodeaux, you think about his bendability, his great maneuver skills, like he's just that freak athlete where, Jermaine Johnson's going to give you the production, but he's not going to make those wow plays, I think. So you're right. If the Jets' history is to get these high athletic profiles, KT should be the pick.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess we can get into a little bit of like if the Jets go elsewhere at 4 and pick Jermaine Johnson at 10, that's one thing. And like, even if I'm not a big Jermaine Johnson guy, it's like, take him at 10. Okay. If you believe in him, go for it. But if the Jets take him at 4, especially like, let's say it is the first 3 edge rushers and then Icky's there or Sauce is there, I don't want to be the team that's overdrafting for need because we feel like we need an edge rusher. Because again, as much as we know the Jets need an edge rusher, and I'm the first person to say that's a game-changing position, like at least we have Carl Lawson, at least we have Franklin Myers, who's proven he can play there. At least we have Bryce Huff, who's shown he can be rotational and come into games. At least we have these new signings who can play edge. It's like as much as we all can agree that edge is a great place for the Jets to go to get a game-changing player, it's not the biggest need on their team, in my opinion. And so it's just like, I don't want to overdraft Jermaine Johnson at 4. If you want to pick someone else at 4 and take him at 10, that's one decision. But if Kayvon Thibodeaux's on the board and you're taking Jermaine Johnson, like I'm a guy who likes to believe in and say I believe in what Joe Douglas does, but that will not make me happy. You know?
I won't understand that move at all. And another one that I just thought of, everybody's like, oh, well, Jermaine Johnson's like ready to be a 3-down player. Robert Saleh on his defensive line does not have 3-down players. They just don't exist. They rotate guys in. They'll have their sets out there against the run.
Williams played 52% of snaps.
Exactly.
It's the worst stat in the world. It makes me mad, but it's true.
Yeah,
like not, and I don't know, dude. So I really fell in love with KT too. And I just,
everybody
I'm
has
not trying to play this game, dude.
And look, and like you said, if it's a scenario where he's going to Houston and there's nothing the Jets could do about it, take Icky at 4, Jermaine Johnson at 10, get your wide receiver later on, maybe try and trade for Deebo. That's still a very great draft to have because you're getting the top player of the class. You're getting the best edge rusher available at the time of that pick at number 10. And if you can still walk away with a starting capable wide receiver, it is still a very good draft. But if it's Jermaine Johnson at 4 and Kayvon Thibodeaux goes to the Giants or to Atlanta or to Seattle at 9, I agree. I don't see people being very happy with that.
Yeah. And I just want to take this moment, since we're just like kind of wrapping up and talking about the draft.
Yeah.
And we're 2 days away, and this is the pre-draft pod. So I just want to take this moment. Like, the Jets have 8 picks, right? Mm-hmm. All in the top 5 rounds. Like, in my opinion, the Jets 1000% like guaranteed are going to be making moves and are going to be trading these picks and are going to be, building capital for next year or moving up this year, or maybe trading some picks to try to get a 6th or 7th rounder, which we don't have, like things like I don't see a world where we're coming out of this draft without trading any of these picks around. And I just want to throw that out there as like a reminder, because it could literally happen at, like, maybe it happens at 4, 10 is very likely, 35 and 36 are very likely, 69 is very likely. Like just, there's so many of these scenarios. And I just think like, I don't know. I just want to throw a reminder out there, I guess, to the listeners. Like we have 8 picks all in the top 5 rounds, and they're in prime position. Like if the Jets don't get a receiver at 4 and 10, if they end up going take Jermaine Johnson at 10, Icky at 4, I'm hoping we move up. Then I'm saying trade those picks up because I want a wide receiver. Get Treylon Burks. But I just think like, you got to go in knowing they're going to be moving around.
Yeah. And I think what makes that even more likely is the fact that this class has no true consensus at all. I saw that, edge rusher Logan Hall, who I believe is my 7th or 8th pass rusher in this class, is going to go in the end of the 1st round. Quay Walker, linebacker out of Georgia, could go before his teammate Nakobe Dean, who's thought of as the 2nd best linebacker prospect in this class. So there is just, teams I saw have fewer than 15 players with 1st round grades. It's just this class is all over the place. I think it's because of the fact that COVID has pushed around a lot of these players' start times. And it's just, we're in this just very uncommon draft. Quarterbacks are not a premium. So yes, the Jets are going to be making moves. Could be at 4, more likely at 10, probably even more likely in round 2 and 3. It's going to be crazy. Like I said, when this pod drops, we're 1 day away. So we'll find out soon. Let's put our money out there, because we are going to wrap up this show. Final predictions. We're going to go through some of the more discussed topics for the Jets real quick. Teddy, at number 4, who is the pick for the Jets? And even if you want to give me like a top 3, if this person's available at 4, he's number 1. If not, it's number 2. Like what's that top pecking order for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna hold water. I'm gonna say if KT is there, he's the pick. I think if KT's not there, Ekwonu is the pick. And if neither are there, I don't even know. I think
if neither are there, that means one.
It's either Sauce or trade back.
Well, if one of those,
Or
but if
take
neither
Jermaine
of those
Johnson.
guys are there,
Oh, true. Then the other guys are there.
yeah, then Hutch or Walker is there. So fine.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go if Icky and KT are both not there, Walker's the pick. But KT is the pick. I'm staking my claim. I think KT is the pick. That's me.
I really want KT to be the pick. The Becton stuff is the one, like I maybe I'm just buying into one Smokescreen and not the other. The Becton stuff, because we've heard about it for so long, really has me thinking they're going to go Icky here. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets see him as like far and away the best prospect of this class. I'm going to go Ikem Ekwonu at number 4. And I hate it because, like,
I like it.
Look, maybe there's no chance. But, wouldn't it be crazy if somehow KT falls to 10? He gets past the Giants and gets past Atlanta or the Seahawks. Like, what? Atlanta goes wide receiver. Seattle goes Derek Stingley. And then all of a sudden,
Giants
KT's
go
there.
line and corner.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, KT's there.
I mean, maybe. I'm still worried about him getting there at 4.
I know. I would be too.
That's just me.
So I'm gonna.
No, I like it. That's cool. I'm KT. You're Icky. We'll throw a friendly $5 bet on it.
I like it. Let's do that.
But the thing is that both probably won't even be available, so it'll probably be a wash.
Right.
Let's make it $100.
I'm gonna pass on that.
Dude, no, you lie for the listeners. So
make it 1,000.
We're super rich.
I'm in Vegas. I flew myself out here. I've got a skyline view in Vegas for the draft. All right, so you're KT number 4. I've switched to Icky, and I kind of hate it. At pick number 10, who's the guy?
Okay, now this one is harder because a week ago I really would have said I think the pick is Drake London, and if it wasn't Drake London, I would have said it's Garrett Wilson. But now I kind of think it's Jameson Williams, so I don't freaking know. But I'm going to say that the Jets pick Drake London. I'm going to stick with it. And the reason is again, it's like I want to go back to what is realistic when you look at the way that the Jets go about their process. And I think that when Joe Douglas's staff and Robert Saleh's staff had their meetings at the beginning of the offseason, and they went over what kind of players fit this offense and what kind of players they're looking for to add to the team so that they can run their schemes the way they want, so that they can truly run, like we talked about last year, the Jets wanted to run 12 personnel and they couldn't, so they had to adjust. So what do? They go get their guys. Like they have they draft for a purpose. And I think Drake London, he's a big body guy. He's going to be able to block. He's going to be able to run the ball, catch screen passes, RPOs. Like, I just think he fits the mold. And so that's where I'm putting my money. I don't want to change it. I don't want to change it the Monday before the draft. I've thought this for a month. I don't want to change it.
Yep. I'm only going to change number 4. At number 10, I'm going to say it's going to be a wide receiver, but it's going to be Drake London. And to me, really, when I finished out,
I thought you were going to change your whole strategy up there.
The entire thing. I almost did, but the more I look at, like, at least my personal top 100, I have, let me pull it up exactly, because it is absurd for this class. I have, out of my top 100, I have 18 different edge rushers in there. And there are guys that are going to be great that are available at 35 and 38. And if it comes down to that, I know edge and wide receiver are the deepest in this class, but like we've said, they've already got a lot of guys on the defensive line. And so if they're going to not get one of the top 3 guys at number 4, just get a guy that's got high upside in rounds 2, whether that's Ikem, I believe is how you say his last name, out of Penn State Penn. I believe that's where he's out of. Or like if Boye Mafe falls, George Karlaftis, if they take an injury guy like David Ojabo, who's falling from Michigan, like there's going to be great guys available in round 2 at the edge position. So I'm going to stick with Drake London at 10, get one of the top guys for Zach Wilson. They've said it all off season. We need to make life easy for Zach Wilson. Ikem Ekwonu in at tackle, Drake London at wide receiver. I love it.
Yeah. I'm glad we agree so that we got a little agreement. I feel like we're doing good.
Awesome. And then
are we going to do 35-38?
Do you want to, instead of just player, because there's no way we can just like name a player unless you want to, we could maybe just say position at that point.
Well, yeah. So, I kind of like probably most fans, I feel like last year I was very like well versed with like a pretty deep in the draft. And this year, just so much time has been spent discussing these first round picks that like the rest of the draft's gone by the wayside a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I am going to make predictions, and these are purely just what I want to happen. And it would be that with those two picks, we get Tyler Linderbaum and Nakobe Dean. Just because, like, me, I have been talking about linebackers this whole offseason, and the Jets just continue to not do anything. Well, they just signed that one guy, the guy from San Francisco, the linebacker, Marcel.
Former San Fran 49er.
We'll think about it.
Yeah, we know who we're talking about.
So yeah, I mean, I think that those would be like really solid picks. And I think Linderbaum, like I keep seeing him mocked to the Jets, and I think the only way the Jets wouldn't pick him if he was there, or the only way the Jets aren't going to pick him is if he's not there, which I think is more realistic. But I would love if we could take him with one of our second round picks.
Yeah, or if they go, I think if they go tackle at 4, I don't see them doubling up at the offensive line there. But in your situation where you've got KT at 4, Drake at 10, offensive line in the beginning parts of round 2, honestly, if it's Tyler Smith, if they take a tackle at that point in round 2, like that could be a good security guy for Becton. If you try and move off of him. I was just looking at all of their top 30 visits that they've had. There aren't many edge rushers outside of like the top 5 guys that they've met with. Actually, I believe there's 0 of them. The edges that they've met with are all of the guys that would be in consideration at 4. So I know you can't say that they need to meet with every single person that's going to be available at rounds 2 or 3, but they have not. They haven't met with anybody outside of that top 5 group.
Yeah, and I think just kind of to back up what we've been saying, like if they've made additions in that edge position, like they've added pass rushers who can play situational roles, like they haven't. I think they're just I think that's what they're in on, is an edge rusher at 4. That's why it's so surprising that all these now scenarios are coming out.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to change it, but I should. And just because I know I've covered myself, I did this. I was asked to do this like mock draft for a bunch of different like publications, some video ones. And last night I recorded both of them. I ended up getting KT at 4 and Drake London at 10. So at least I've got that out there in the universe already. So this podcast, I can kind of cover all my bases here. 35 and 38. I think one of them is going to be safety. I'm going to go Lewis Seen out of Georgia. That's a guy that's been connected to them a lot recently. So I've got my offensive lineman, I've got my wide receiver, I've got my safety, and I'm going to say edge at 38 or 35. It's going to be some combo of Lewis Seen at safety. I think they can go linebacker at 69 or 111. But I think at some point there, they'll probably go and get their safety, kind of just as a security blanket behind what's his name's escaping me. Not the guy they just brought in, but who was around last year, got hurt in the first game. Lamarcus Joyner. Yep. Thanks. Yeah. So I think that's a little safety protection there for them. So I think they'll go Lewis Seen, and then I'll just throw out Boye Mafe falls or David Ojabo falls. One of those two guys. So That's my prediction there with 35 and 38. Do you want to include 69 there? Yeah. Do you have any?
Well, I'm just going to say this is kind of a cop out, but at 69 or 111, they're taking a halfback, one of those two.
Okay. I like it.
I really do think I just want to get it all out there. I guess we should end at some point, but I'm having a blast.
We haven't been going as long as I thought we would have been.
Yeah, that's true. But it just feels longer. Like we've gotten a lot talked about and covered a lot, and it feels good. But like I love Michael Carter. I do, but I just like I really think that they're gonna bring someone in who's going to take that first and second down workload. Like I just really think that's going to happen. And I mean, obviously it's like it hasn't been happening so far with how free agency has gone or anything, but I just think that that's like eminent. Even if it's not obviously going to completely take him away, I think Michael Carter is going to get the majority of opportunities and touches in terms of like receiving work and rushing work. But I really think they want, similar to like how the 49ers run their offense, like I just think they want guys who can come in and just be bruisers and run, you know, because the Jets are going to be running a lot.
I think you just don't want me to go back to back in our dynasty league. So you're trying to fade Michael Carter a little bit.
I'm not remotely worried about you in our dynasty league. Your team is completely washed.
You have the first overall pick this year? Because you finished where last?
What did I get 2 years ago?
Yeah,
we're actually only two champions.
So. Shout out to us, Chasing 69, the New York Jets podcast and Dynasty League champions. I think they'll probably go running back with maybe 111 or 117. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be a bruiser. I think when you're in that outside zone scheme, you just need guys in there that just fit the offense. And a guy that I think that makes sense, they've met with him, Pierre Strong Jr. out of South Dakota State. I'm going to put it out there. It's going to be him specifically that's going to be a New York Jet.
I like that. And when I say bruiser, I don't mean that. I just mean a guy who's going to, exactly, like a guy who's going to like get kind of beat up, you know?
Right.
And
okay, cool. And then we'll throw out, I think at 69 or 111 tight end. I think they're going to take a guy that's the receiving tight end. I really do. I think that they've got their blockers in there. I know who's that undrafted free agent you mentioned that's still
Kenny
around.
Yeboah.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to go someone, whether it's Ruckert or Isaiah Likely, someone that's just going to be a pure pass catcher. It's that F tight end spot. I think they'll attack those two skill positions. What positions have I left out at that point? I think linebackers back there at day 3 as well too. And I used to feel so good about interior defensive linemen, but after starting to think about how they'll move John Franklin Myers inside in pass situations, that's less of a need in my opinion. So I've kind of faded off of that. But and then, it seems like they'll probably take a corner as an undrafted free agent. And that's your draft. Is there any other thing you want to predict? I want to predict your excitement. I'm going to predict you will be.
Oh, my God.
Man, if it's gosh, if it's that one that's being thrown around now with Jermaine Johnson, like you will not be happy.
It'll be like, really? Like, all right, like I guess this is what we're doing, but my excitement though is gonna be high. Like my uncle, story time, my uncle texted me and asked me if I wanted tickets to go see Cats the musical, because he had 2 tickets to go see Cats. And I was like, hey man, like I appreciate the offer, but that's Thursday night. Like I gotta watch Jets freaking get two plus future stars that are gonna be great people in our lives for years to come. So
the draft is the most important night of the year for me. 2 years ago, I had a bunch of friends from JMU. It was like right at the beginning of COVID. So we all just joined in on like a Zoom call and just watched it together. There was one night I had a formal at JMU. So I recorded the draft and watched it from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. Like it's one of my favorite days. Oh, and I turned off my phone too, so I didn't know what the picks were before watching it at 1 a.m. Like to me, it's just like I love seeing it all break down. And so I'm extremely excited. The Colts do not pick until 42. I will be glued to the TV the entire first round. And just like from a fan perspective, my team has never makes first round picks. Even last year, I knew we were going to trade out. We traded out. I love the draft. And no offense to, was it Uncle Jay? Shout out Uncle Jay or?
Yeah, I was Uncle Jay.
Awesome. Shout out Uncle Jay. Cats, come on. It's the NFL draft.
I know. And I mean, just to build off what you're saying about the draft, like, I guess it just like all the things that I say are just like, cause I'm obsessed with football, but it's just, it's so easy to be like, oh, these are the rookies, but it's like 5 years from now, like so many of these players, and it's not always it's never like, it's not going to be all the first round guys, of course, but so many of the players that are going to be taken in this draft are going to like be the core of this league, eventually. And it's just like the draft is where teams are built. It's where like stars are made, like where you get drafted and how you're used, I think is so important. And I think it's such an underrated part of all of this is that everyone puts 100% onus on the kid. And sure, like it is on you to go out there and produce, but there's so many factors that come into play. Like I remember Des Bryant, when I was a little kid, and it's like I was a big Eagles fan before I was a Jets fan, and Des Bryant was like a player I liked and thought was cool, and he gets drafted to the Cowboys, and then it's like, guess we hate Des Bryant now, and it's just like players are built, and the I'm trying to think of the word, like the lore of the NFL, you're literally witnessing it as it goes, like if Zach Wilson becomes a top 10 quarterback, it's like, well, that was sick when we drafted him, it's like, I just love it, man. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I am too. And now we're a day away by the time this is out. So I know we'll be talking a lot about it. We'll be active on the Twitter. Teddy, we forgot to mention as well too, but we're gonna wrap things up. So we'll mention it here.
I didn't remember till we were like 50 minutes in. And I was like, well, now we should just wait till the end.
Let's shout out because I think we made a joke last week how we had like 40 some followers. We've doubled that since then. So
yeah, I was on a road to 50 and I was really excited for 50, and now we're almost at 100. So let's get to 100. Blake's gonna take his shirt off once we get there to 1,000.
I got dark nipples. I can't do that.
I know. but yeah, NYJ_chasing69. Follow us. I'll be sending out heaters. Blake will be sending out heaters. Yeah.
Sounds great.
And
make sure
YouTube. Yeah. What's our YouTube again?
As well too. It's just
same
Chasing
thing?
69. I thought it was the same
69.
thing at one point. It's just Chasing 69. So make
check
sure
us
to
out
go
because
subscribe.
Our backgrounds are dope. So
our backgrounds are sick today. I'm recording from Vegas. So yeah, make sure to follow us there. Follow me on Twitter at Blake Andrew Pace. Teddy, if you want, at Teddy Huncho. I feel like you're more active on the I always say your Twitter account just because.
No, that's cool. I'm not very good at like my own Twitter, and I don't like saying things, but I really Chasing 69 Twitter. Follow that boy.
Get active on that. If you haven't subscribed to it and you want to subscribe to the NFL Draft newsletter, we've got a couple more coming out, and then I'm releasing it all as a PDF with more extensive, like it's going to have my grades on there, player comps, profiles. I'm not going to sleep between now and Thursday. Very excited for that. So yeah, it's gonna be a really fun time, and we'll be back next week, hopefully with a happy Teddy, hopefully with a happy Blake. We'll see how the draft went. Still coming out on Wednesday as well too. Thank you guys all for listening to another episode of Chasing 69. We'll see you next week.